Today I'm going to take a look at the Dungeon Master's book from the 4th edition starter set. This starter set was released in 2010 as part of the relaunch of 4th edition D&D using the Essentials label. Let's take a look. The first couple pages talk about being a DM and how to use the book. Next, it picks up right where the player's book left off. At the end of the player's book, you realize that you were outnumbered and you needed help to fight the goblins. Here, the idea is that you now have a few other players and you will be the DM for the encounter with multiple characters at the table. The layout will be seen a lot in this book and in 4th edition in general. It's really nice. 2 pages that gives the DM everything that they need to run the encounter. You get the setup, you get some box text. There's tactics for the monsters, there's the monster stat blocks, there's a picture of the location that you'll be fighting in, there's some terrain features. It's really everything that the DM needs without having to flip around a lot through the book. There's a little more information given here than in other books since this is designed for someone that has not DM'd before, but overall you see this a lot and it's really in a very nice layout. Once that encounter is complete, you now have a bunch of pages that resemble the Dungeon Master's Guide. First, it talks about the different pillars of the game and some of the basics of running the game. Then you get information about running a combat encounter, followed by movement and position and areas of effect, how you make attacks, how you determine what the damage will be from those attacks. You get a whole section on the conditions and how long those conditions will last, how to make saving throws, a little bit about healing, including what happens if you drop to 0 and your character begins to start dying, short rests and extended rest rather than long rest. And then we get into an adventure called The Twisting Halls. This is a full adventure complete with a dungeon map, and it gives you a lot of information to help you get set up. The prior encounters serve as the introduction, and this is the last phase of the campaign. As we saw earlier, each encounter is laid out very nicely in this 2-page format. Everything you need is right in front of you. As the party moves from one room to the next, you just simply advance to the next pages and you go again. It's really easy to prepare for the DM. You can read through one of these in just a few minutes and kind of get the idea of what you need to do in order to run this encounter. The first couple encounters are combat based, and then you get into a skill challenge. This is a weak area of the book for me. I had no idea what a skill challenge was. Everything else in D&D was based on mechanics where you roll a die, you add a bonus, you compare it with something. And I really had no idea what this was. It took me a lot of watching some videos on YouTube and reading articles for it to make sense. For a new DM, a new player of D&D, this was something that was a little more complicated than I was expecting. It's just an okay skill challenge. You're just trying to convince a dragon to not kill you. I get that they wanted to cover everything in this, but I feel like this is a more advanced thing that maybe should have been saved for people that were moving on to the Dungeon Master's Guide and the actual player's handbook. It's just a little bit confusing, and there's not a lot of extra information that they give you about how to do it. So it just seems like it could have been done better, and it's a little bit confusing. The next encounter focuses on a trap along with a little bit of combat with some goblins. Then you get to a puzzle. This one involves a room that looks like a chessboard. The puzzle itself is rather mundane. For a new player, it seems rather interesting, but it's not terribly complicated. You have to make your way across this chessboard and navigate around the other pieces in the chess set that are basically the monsters that you are going to be fighting. Depending on where you move, different things will happen, and you may have to do some combat along the way. The next encounter is some more role-playing as you talk with a doppelganger that can try to give you some information about what's to come later on in the dungeon. Then you get another combat encounter, and finally the boss battle where you fight the actual wizard who you've been after this whole time. After wrapping up the adventure, you get a little bit of information about leveling up, but that is really as far as this box is going to take you. You'll get your characters to 2nd level, but there's nothing for you to do at 2nd level. If you want to do anything more, you're going to need to either make your own encounters or adventure, or you're going to need to find some other materials to work with. And it mentions here that if you want to get to 3rd level, then you're going to need to go and get the next book, which is actually Heroes of the Fallen Lands, because this is part of the Essentials set. And then we go back to some DM tools. First, it talks about creating adventures and the different types of quests that you have and how you might build those. Talks about building a dungeon and all the different ways you can use the map that was provided with this set. And if you fold it different ways, the rooms can connect differently. I actually was not a fan of what it had you doing with this dungeon map. In all of those encounters that came prior, as well as in this section here, it wants you to take that dungeon map and fold it up so that the players can only see the room that they're working with. I'm not generally concerned about needing to keep all the materials in pristine condition. I think they should be used and it's okay for them to be well worn, but I don't feel that you need to go out of your way to make it so that they're get wrinkled and folded the wrong way and stuff like that. Then it talks about how to balance your encounters and the XP that you would use and with the different types of monsters and how you would build a proper encounter for your party. Then you get a whole section here talking about the different monster roles and what that means for you as you're building an encounter. And then the next several pages is really the monster manual for this. You get all the different stat blocks for the assorted monsters that you came across during this campaign. I believe there might be a couple additional monsters in here as well that you can use if you're designing your own campaign. So it's really quite a bit to help get you started if you want to design your own stuff. And then once we get towards the back, we have a section that talks about treasure and rewards that you might give. The box came with some cards that had some treasure, like some magic items, such as an amulet of health and things like that. You were able to give those cards out to the players as their reward. It just helps new players kind of put something tangible in their hands when they get a reward, as opposed to just marking it down on their character sheet. And then the last couple pages are an introduction to the Nentir Vale, and this was created specifically for the Essentials set. It's a small little world that has a bunch of different locations, some towns and some mountains and all the things that you would expect. I really like this little world. I wish they had more information about it because I think it's great for a new player and a new DM to look at this and not be overwhelmed with something like Forgotten Realms where there's so much lore. This is a much smaller world. You get some cities and some locations with just very small descriptions of what's going on there and some of the key players. And it doesn't take you a long time to travel through all these locations. It's a really nice setting, and I do wish that they had spent a little more time and had the opportunity to put out some materials that took advantage of this setting beyond just the basic Essentials kits that they had. I have only just a few issues with it, with the skill challenge, and some of the layout is a little weird with how it kind of goes to some DM stuff, and then you go to that main adventure, and then you come back to more DM stuff. I'm not sure why they didn't just put all that stuff together as opposed to splitting it up. But overall, it's a really good book. It's a great tool for an aspiring DM that has little to no exposure to D&D. Until I got the DM guide, I used this book extensively, so I think it was really nice. So what did you think of this book or the starter set in general, or even the Essentials line of products from 4th edition? Let me know down in the comments. Please sign up for the newsletter. It's free and you get a free one-shot adventure when you join. And make sure you do not leave until you subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take care.